Are
know.
you are you are you so you were homeschooled, so you got exposed to this a lot in your very
Yeah.
important formative years. Is this something that you're planning on doing with your daughter, or are you going to just let her actually go to a school and
I mean, I think we'll relocate to. I think we'll relocate to a house in the suburbs in a district probably before she begins school. Um, Whether that's 3 years or 5 years or whatever. Even though we're doing a lot here, um, because you don't want to put what you could be putting towards equity. You don't want to be putting towards a private school. That's dumb. Um, but uh, I mean, I think homeschooling was incredibly valuable for me. I mean, to be able to do the stuff that I do, I don't think my parents had no idea they were preparing me for the changing nature of work, but in a way they were. I mean, everything that we did is stuff that obviously I wasn't writing takes or things like that, but the ability to just pick apart or put together my own curriculum, explain it, write essays about it, that's literally what I got to do. Yeah, I'll ever pick your maths for the day. I'll ever pick your reading for the day. I'll ever pick a movie and tell me about what you watched it. Like what talk about what actually happens in the film, how it's shot, what the story is, what the plot is. I mean, that was what my parents pushed, and that was how they both like questions, answering questions, being able to respond, being able to construct this stuff. I think in a way, for my own temperament as a kid, it was much better than going to school. You know, it was weird when I did start high school. I was 12, so it was a weird experience to go in there with the kids at that age. But I was so fat that it didn't really like I wasn't too like size wise. I was just like a fatter version of the same height I am now and everything almost. So there weren't problems like that. Um, but yeah, it was a weird experience to go into the regular school because there was a lot of structure but not as much content.
yeah.
And what we have today in the work for home world, yeah, there are scheduled Zooms on my daily calendar and stuff, and there's the podcast is a Zoom, this is a Zoom, whatever. But a lot of the content I have to work through that myself. So I have books that I'm reading at any given time. I have things I'm watching through at any given time. I have things that I'm writing at any given time, and they're all just lists that I'm going down and checking off, just like I did back then. So I think what they set up actually was a great way for me. I don't know if it would be a great way for Cleo. I mean, I think it would depend on her disposition. It would depend on my mom and my wife have very different temperaments. Um, I don't think it's not good parental practice to just leave your kid at home from 8 till 5, even if one of you comes home for lunch.
I wouldn't
Um,
I wouldn't recommend it.
but
I
somehow they
personally
had
wouldn't.
total confidence in me. Like I'd be left with like advice like don't touch the stove. Uh, People would ask my mom like, well, why doesn't he? Why do you think he's not going to burn down the house? And she's like, he just won't. It's like, why do you think he won't go outside? He just won't.
The
I don't
trap
know if I
is
could say that about Cleo.
the trap is that you can look back at it and they were right. But your mom was right. I mean,
Yeah, they're totally right about how to educate me.
you're sitting here right now like you've done pretty well. You're like
Yeah.
you're working really hard. You seem, reasonably well put together. You're taking care of yourself and your family. uh I mean, at least, there's survivorship bias in the examples here.
No, I actually loved homeschool because no one was there. I was left completely alone. Like the best time, it still is. I mean, I love my family, but I still like my alone time, my 4 hour life or my 4-HL. Um, when I could just kick back, read like an hour or two of reading, an hour or two of this, or an hour of exercise, which I just finished before this started. Um, and that's my time, and nobody is bugging me, um, and it's so peaceful, just this like it's not quite as peaceful as that was, but there was a lot less peace when they all got home. So
Yeah.
but to just be able to sit at home and like, if I just want to read these three books, like didn't matter that they weren't in some school curriculum. If I wanted to read Watership Down like 9 times in a row, I could read it 9 times in a row as long as I had something else to say about it. You know, and some books like, like the Once and Future King, I probably did read 9 or 10 times in a row. Don't know why. Don't know why, but just you know what I mean. Like just, or
Yeah.
if I wanted to read a wrestling magazine that day, like some old, I would buy old 1970s back issues of those like Bill Apter Weston wrestling magazines. I would buy old, like Weider muscle magazines and stack them up. And so that seemed weird. Why would a kid put his allowance toward this? But I use that too. Like
You deadlift like
I can
you,
write the
you
wrestling
deadlift the house.
obituaries in
Yeah,
a
you
night.
deadlift the house now, so
Yeah,
it all works out.
and I write about the stuff. Like that's the thing. Like all of what fitness has cost me, or what wrestling cost me on the front end, it has made me that much more on the back end. And I haven't had to take a single bump in the wrestling ring, or use a steroid, or sell a steroid, or any of those things.
Yeah.
Like it is, the payoff has been so enormous. Um, and it's exactly what my old man would say. This stuff would come back around one day. And my mom would sometimes question that, like, well, shouldn't he read Great Expectations instead of this, like, what's superstar Billy Graham doing right now? Or can anyone beat Larry Scott in 1966 for the Mr. Olympia? Um, shouldn't he be reading something normal, instead of this kind of weird material? And he would just say, no, as long as he's got something to say about it, he can read it. That was his take on anything. Like if I wanted to watch the movie Predator, like 6 and 7 years old, and I did, uh, I watched that movie probably every week until I was 12 or 13 years old. I watched that VHS tape at least once a week.
I
But I
love
started
that.
watching it
So
when I was either 5 or 6. Like an R rating on a movie meant nothing to my parents. About like, as long, it could be like buckets of blood, like Dead Alive levels of blood, like lawnmower running into the bodies. The only thing that they would like object to would be not even like sexual content, but like romance. So a movie could have sex but not romance, or vast amounts of blood, and I could watch it. But if it contained adult themes like a romance, I wasn't allowed to watch it.
right.
So I could watch Predator but not Pretty Woman. Or I wasn't allowed to watch Dirty Dancing for some reason, but I could watch Roadhouse.
I that's the correct Swayze movie to
But
binge.
like I don't understand. Like they had all of these restrictions.
Okay,
Like
okay, hold on a second though. Hold on a second though. So your parents had all these weird restrictions that you didn't understand as a kid.
oh,
I guarantee you right now, if you looked at the way that you restrict, like, Cleo Rose, or even what you're planning on, you're going to be able to look at it and be like, she's not going to get any of this. I'm not saying that your parents actually had some sort of like, grand plan that they were attempting to execute appropriately. I'm just saying maybe there isn't really a lot of clarity into the decision making process.
no, no, I think you're right. In my dad's case, I think it came down to the end of I watched things that he thought didn't suck. So like Big Trouble in Little China, fine, good. Nightmare on Elm Street, he didn't like it, so he didn't watch it. Although he would watch it or go to the theater to see each one of them as they came out, but he didn't like them enough to let me watch them. So
You
there were
had
just
your own
all of
little
these.
tastemaker.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I have like he censored movies by his, and everything by his own standards. Like, you know, it was perfectly normal to watch hours a day of pro wrestling because it would be on in like 8 hour blocks, like showing old regional wrestling, WBF wrestling. I'd just sit there. But if I like tried to put Mr. Rogers on the TV, my dad would be like, "Oh, look at this look at this weirdo. This is weird shit. Turn this off."
Him and
And
his
so
cardigan.
yeah,
What's he doing?
he thought that was really creepy. He thought Sesame Street was really creepy. But watching like men pose or like fight each other in the wrestling ring, um, that was not only okay, but to be encouraged, for a kid of 5, 6, 7 years old, that was perfectly fine. And
Do you see the echoes, like even just, do you ever take a second and pause and see the echoes of your father or your mother's behavior coming in and how you're interacting with your daughter without even realizing that that's part of the decision that you're making right there? You're like, wait a second, I'm definitely doing dad things right now. Like I'm being my old man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely things that my wife has her watching content. Like they'll watch Mister Rogers, and I'll always make a remark about it because I think it's a little odd, or I fought, like Cleo Rose and I, like when we roughhouse, like we call it fighting. Like Cleo Rose knows what it means to fight. Like she gets tossed in the air, thrown around. But because we always did as kids, like we were fighting the old man from like as soon as we could go at it, fight each other as soon as we could go at it. That was just something my dad encouraged.
Did you have sisters or you have only brothers growing
Oh
up?
God, I have a half brother, and then I have two cousins that I lived with in my teen years that basically are brothers. And it was just a house of, it was all men. At one point, it was my dad, his brother, their two kids. It was like a house of all men.
Yeah,
And at that point,
it
that
sounds like it.
this stuff really began to intensify. Like meals that were more like feeds. A situation with flatulence that got so bad they finally had to ban it on the first floor of the house. Like one-upsmanship just made and dairy just made the house like unbearable.
Yeah, you
The
became
downstairs
feral.
bathroom,
It was
yeah,
a
yeah,
feral family. Yeah.
yeah. They was so I got to experience, in addition to years of my mom, who's very controlling and her own way. I got to experience like what a like life of all men, like a true man's world. And I mean, like neither my dad nor his brother were dating at that time. They were in a real, it was like a real like woman hating environment too, or just like not even that, just like no women allowed
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
environment. I
yeah.
remember my dad went on a date with a woman at one point. A woman named her name was Sunny or Judith or something. And he brought her back to my uncle's townhome. Yeah, and they're just sitting on the easy chair together that like we would normally watch football on or something. She's sitting in his lap, and the three of us, including his brother, are seated around the couch. And there's a woman in the setting, like they're like kind of it's public display of affection stuff right there. And I remember thinking at like 12 or 13, I guess it would have been 97. I would have been 15. I think I'm thinking like, I know I'm thinking that what's going, like I like my brain couldn't even process the idea of dating.
Right.
But there's my dad on this date. And then, for like a month afterwards, my dad is driving this woman's BMW. Have no idea why. She gives him her older car, and he's just allegedly, he didn't have a car. Allegedly, his car is in the shop, so he's just tooling around town in this vehicle. Um, that was when I had to, my job after school was to run my dad's Yahoo Personals page.
Wow.
Yeah, so I began writing correspondence back to all of the
All that
women he
typing,
was.
all that
Yes, yeah.
typing came into play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I began taking down his correspondence. And when he got married to a woman he met off Yahoo Personals, I was the architect of all of the emails until they met. And then the truth came out slowly over the course of that marriage. But I was sort of the Cyrano de Bergerac of that union. And sometimes my cousin Charlie was also uh, working the old man's personal ad. And again, like neither of us dated in high school, so I didn't even go to a school dance. I didn't
I,
go to a prom. I didn't go. I mean, I graduated when I was 16. I had just turned 16 in May of the year that I graduated in June, and so I never went to a school dance. I don't think I understood that you could what a date was until like midway through college, and by then I was so busy working and being in school that I had no. It just didn't hit me till probably my early to mid 20s what that even was. It
so
was just so alien. Like a lot of people today, kids today, or Gen Z or whatever, talk a lot about sex and sexuality and dating. I did not have a single thought about that until my early to mid 20s, if any. I thought about eating like a big steak after my shift ended. I know that sounds fucking stupid, but like if you offered me a date or a steak, I probably even into my well, probably like at any point, I would take the steak, especially if it's dry aged beef. I would
Yeah,
take that over.
it
I'd
depends on the
take that
state.
over the date. Yeah, definitely dry aged beef, tomahawk, ribeye. I would take that over the date, especially if I didn't have to do the cleanup afterwards.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. We, I just, okay. How did you end up getting married and having a child? At what point did you think to yourself, you know what?
When I was in law school from '04 to '07, I dated a couple folks, and then when I was in grad school from '07 to 12, getting the PhD, I dated people at Pitt.
Okay, so
And
you
it just
did
I
finally
yeah,
enter the dating pool.
yeah, and like initially it was a way to have somebody to go out to restaurants with. Especially in Chicago, I ate a lot of junk food during that time when I was living out that way, and so it was great to have somebody to eat these massive meals with. And then later on, yeah, I began to understand like there's a progression associated with this, and I think it took a while for that to kick in, and it wasn't probably until dating my wife that there were a lot of near misses and like mistakes and things where I perhaps the relationship could have like evolved, but I just continued to do the same thing. And I mean, I wasn't done with my PhD yet, so I wasn't like ready to commit to anything. It was a lot of it was timing, but like people I didn't even occur to me that people had stages of this,
Mhm.
like that you get that like they're, or at least maybe they still do. I don't know, but like you like have an engage like my I ever saw my parents have engagements prior to marriage, or like they have like pre-wedding events or wedding events. The parents just my parents got common law married in the state of Pennsylvania. The time limit ran. In fact, that wasn't even legal because my dad's first wife didn't die till '89. So she was still alive while cohabiting with my mother. She was in the hospital. She had bad MS, and so I saw none of this growing up. So truly, I was like raised by wolves in that sense, and it didn't occur to me. I had to learn it later on. I know that seems very very weird, but I just didn't know what it was. I think I missed a lot of this, like the. At the same time, I think I missed probably a lot of the heartbreak or pain or just confusion that a lot of kids have because I
You
was
weren't
just
in
focused
those
on,
scenarios. Yeah.
yeah, I was just focused on different things, and by the time it came around to doing that, I was like older, like the clock had already ticked on being really stupid. I mean, the only thing I was just really not committed
Yeah.
initially, like you know just a guy that liked to eat out meals and big meals and lived in a studio, in grad school, and don't want to be in that studio too long after I ate a big meal because the bathroom was right there, and the futon was right there, and it wasn't.
That
had a
sounds
few,
not romantic.
had a
That's
few
not it.
relationships end for that reason.
Yeah, that's
Did
not
not
it.
learn until later. That just so repulsive,
Where's
apparently.
the Roadhouse barn, man? Come on. Like you couldn't put the barn together.
Oh,
You couldn't have the old Mercedes.
no, well, I was in a big city. I lived in a small studio. At the time, I liked that kind of compressed living because it forced me to go outside all the time, use the city,
Yeah.
hang out with people at their places, and it was a good move overall. But for that type of like having people over and you've got like 200 square feet, um,
That's not it.
yeah, no, and I mean, they look at your place and it's a futon, literally just a futon that's in bed form, and they're like, you mean like what are you
Like make
bringing me in
yourself at
here to
home.
do? Yeah, what do you? I just sit here on the bed with me, and you know what I mean? Like it's not. I was such an idiot. I like there's an obvious implication just having a bed in your house. Then the house is only the bed and a bathroom, and uh, I don't know. I'm glad
There's
that
only
stuff's
two things that happens here.
I guess kitchen and a fucking fridge full of milk.